And hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. My name's Ivan. I'm one of the co-founders of Applaud. For those who don't know about us, we provide a workforce experience layer that simplifies your digital HR services. So if you are new to Applaud, not quite sure what that means, we have Duncan here. He's going to talk a little bit more about our platform later in the presentation. So hi Duncan, if you want to introduce yourself and say hello.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're from. Great to have you all on the call today. I'm Duncan, also a founder of Applaud, and really excited to be talking about this hot topic of personalization. We'll be sharing with you some of our experience about what we've done here, and so very, very excited to be talking about this topic today and sharing that with you.
Yeah, let's get cracking. So what are we going to talk about today? So really hot topic. I'm seeing lots of articles and thought leadership in this. So we thought we would do a session on what personalization means and what it means to us as Applaud. This is something that we've been investing in over the last 12 months in embellishing our platform, bringing new features in to support this new world of personalization within digital HR. So we really want to talk about why it's important, what are the problems we're trying to solve. It's all very well doing new tech and new shiny things, but there's always going to be some problems that we're trying to untangle. So we'll talk about those. We'll introduce some new language. You might have heard about personas and journeys. These are terms that are really becoming a little bit more mainstream, but we want to kind of baseline those because those are the fundamental concepts that drive a lot of the work we do around personalization in the platform. That'll be my bit. Be about 20 minutes long, and then I'll hand over to Duncan and he will show you what we have done in the Applaud platform to support this. So if you're one of our customers, this is a glimpse into cutting edge stuff that we have released in our platform. And if you're new to Applaud, it gives you a taste of what you might get if you become one of our customers. So let's have a nice throwback to the 80s. I'm belying myself as a 1970s child here. So those of you that are in the UK and are pre-internet and remember what it was like before we went online, you might remember teletext. Teletext was the way that we got our information online before the internet came along, through our TVs. I think this was a worldwide thing. It actually only got shut down in the UK in 2012, but it seems quite fun looking back at that 40 years ago. I remember looking how to get my news and sport through the TV back then. I wonder how many of you remember that too. Why is this relevant? Because this is a really good example of what I call a non-personalized experience. If you look at that little screen there, excuse me. I think at some point around 10 million households in the UK had access to that sort of information on their TV screens. So very much a sort of a top level menu. You know, if you wanted news or finance, that was there, but if you wanted any other content, you had to drill down. It's quite cumbersome to work out how to navigate through the different menu buttons and options to get to the content you actually wanted. So 10 million people using this, every one of them had exactly the same menu screen. What triggered me to think about this is over Christmas, I bought myself a nice new TV. It was a Christmas present to myself. One of the things I really noticed after I turned it on, apart from the nice bigger size that I had, was how much work had gone into personalizing the experience when I turned on the TV. Rather than having to log on my cable box to get cable TV or fire up my PlayStation to watch Disney Plus with the kids or struggle to stream my iPad through the TV to watch Apple Plus, everything was there built into the TV. It started to learn very quickly the apps I used more than most. Netflix got pushed over to the left. It's always there when I needed to watch some content. It knew what I was watching midstream. So within a click, turn the TV on, what I'd call a personalized experience in the consumer world, mirroring what we've been used to with Netflix for a long time. Obviously, one of the classic examples of personalizing some tech in the consumer world. My Netflix homepage looks a lot different to my daughter's Netflix page, for example, a lot less pink. So let's cross over to how this overlays into HR technology. There's a grubby little monitor there. It's a bit of a cheeky little image, but you know, millions of users across the world are using HR technology that starts off with an experience that looks much like this. Maybe a bit unfair picking on Oracle and beline my Oracle roots. It could be PeopleSoft, it could be SAP, it could be Workday. It could be an intranet page that's got lots of links all over it. But the key thing here is that so many of us have HR experiences that start with a very sort of flat top level experience. And if you think about the concept, it's actually not that far removed from that early teletext page I showed right at the beginning, where you just have a list of options and you have to click through to find out content that you're interested in. An example of what I call a non-personalized experience in HR technology today. So why is this a big thing? Why are we looking to change some of this? There's a good quote I like from one of the analysts we always like to follow, Josh Bersin. If you're not familiar with him, do Google him and read his content and try to follow him. He's been writing about this topic for a number of years now, and really sort of talking about focusing as custodians of our HR estate. Stop thinking about putting in what we call programs and thinking about putting in experiences for our workers. And what do we mean by that? There's a trend to kind of keep buying new stuff and plugging things into our estate. Hey, we've got some problems with our transfer process, for example. Well, let's buy some survey tools to find out what people think, or let's invest in some new case management software so we can log all those tickets that start coming in. Let's invest in chatbots because that will help people work it out. And what we're doing there is we're incrementally adding to our estate with these little programs of work. What Joss is evangelizing, what a lot of the industry is coming around to now, is taking a step back from that and thinking about, okay, well, what's the experience that our workers are having with all these software and technology that we have within our organizations? Why is it causing so many help desk tickets and confusion and slowness of process? And we're advocating now stepping back and thinking about an experience in the same way as you would think about your customer experience. What do your customers go through when they have a transaction with your organization, and reflecting that inwards to make everything a lot smoother? We did a survey, I think this was just before Christmas. Really interesting to come back. I think we have some links to, if you're interested in some of the other results. But one of the striking things is how little customers are doing in this area at the moment, even though there's a great demand to do better. Something like under 10% of single figures came back and saying that they actually, in organizations, offer a good personalized experience. Some customers are saying, well, we're not actually sure what that means. So, tell us what a good experience looks like. So, all very good talking about nice shiny things and the Netflix within our HR portfolio, but whenever we want to invest in improving what we have, you've really got to look at the pain points and what are the problems that we're trying to solve with these new initiatives. There's a nice slide I'll dwell on for a little bit. So we're going to start talking about employee journeys and processes, but we've picked up one that, although it might not be a high volume process, it's one I've come across many times, especially before I started Applaud, the idea of the process of changing your name within the organization. So typically if someone gets married, they'll often want to change their surname, which sometimes has an implication they want to change their email address as well. So on the surface, quite an exciting time for someone, quite a simple change you'd think, but if it starts impacting email addresses and other things, it causes all sorts of carnage underneath the scenes when you actually go to make those changes. So this is a sort of a good example of where a worker might come in and think, well, I'm not quite sure how to do this. Often in HR systems, a name change is locked. You can't do it without going to HR because for obvious reasons. So the first thing you naturally do is try and search how to do it. It might be through your intranet, it might be on your HR system as well. You might well find no information to help you. So next step, ask the manager. A year ago, you might have elbowed your manager over the partition or cornered them in the coffee room and said, how do I do this? And now, of course, we're into this new world of so many of us who are remote working, that interaction isn't quite as easy. So it might be an email, it might be an instant chat message, it might be something embedded at the end of your one-to-one with your manager. It's adding friction to a process that's maybe wasn't there a year ago. And again, this is one of the effects of COVID, it's injected a sense of urgency to make this sort of transaction a much more seamless and frictionless for people to do. So then the manager probably doesn't know. So the manager will call HR or send an email to their help desk or maybe raise a ticket. And then all the magic starts to happen. Probably with an email address change, IT probably need to be involved. They probably need to change Active Directory or change a single sign-on or something else. So maybe even HR raise a ticket on IT. IT go away for a few days, do something, right back to HR. HR then change their systems. They have to update their interfaces, so benefits, payroll, travel expenses, and all the other interfaces kick off. And all the while, that poor little worker just wanted a name change is sitting there thinking, why haven't I heard about this? Going into the systems, trying to work out what's going on and not understanding why they haven't heard anything. What's the impact of that? Probably another ticket or a nudge to the manager, and maybe the manager raises a case. So now we've got another case going through the help desk because something hasn't happened and people can't see what's going on. Not the greatest experience, lots of inefficiencies, lots of pain, lots of frustration, and the end result is that employee thinks is a feeling of relief when something's happened rather than, hey, that was great. On its own, that might seem not the biggest case, but if you extrapolate this across all of your difficult processes, you think about things like hiring or transfers or relocation or promotions or someone going on maternity and having a secondment, or maybe someone resigning and the manager needed to raise a new vacancy. All of these things, if you've got processes that are this tangled, they start to stack up and they cause a lot of problems and HR service desk overload. And we're seeing this has really been a pronounced effect of the last year. We're seeing lots of organisations that are coming to terms with the fact that as everyone is working in a more remote fashion, these sorts of cases are starting to really hurt the efficiency of the business. So we have this kind of nice model we like to, when we're talking about what a good digital experience looks like, and this sort of framework and 4 components. I'll go around these quickly. Each one of these is probably a webinar in its own, to be honest. But talking about the right product and the right people and personalization, talking about moments and channels. Product isn't just about the HR technology you have. Doesn't mean that if you're on-premise, you need to buy cloud technology. That's not the case. You can have a good digital experience with on-premise systems. This is as much about your internal products as it is about the HR technology you're investing in. So things like, think about having a look at your knowledge documents. Is your leave policy some dusty old document that hasn't been updated for 15 years? Does it need to be freshening up? Is it in plain language? Is it in the language of your business? Is it branded? Have you started looking at internal video content for your high touch and difficult transactions? If you've started to move towards digital assistants and chatbots, have you looked at the language of your chat interactions and how personalized are they? Those sorts of things. So it's as much about choosing your right technology portfolio. You might need a platform like Applaud to help you with that, as it is about your internal content too. And then the people, think about the people, think about your consumers, think about the different types of work you have in your organization. This is where we get onto persona design. We'll talk about that a bit later, but this is the trigger to decide how you tailor your content for the different type of audience that you have within your organization. And then moments and channel, how do you communicate back to your audience at the right time, keep them in the loop, use the different channels available to do that communication. One of the big things we're pushing on is things called nudges, which is around using the notification facility on your mobile device. Think about the amount of stuff that comes to you on your mobile device these days that means that you get information without having to go into email. I've just received my bank statement, my electricity bill's ready, your parcel delivery is going to be coming tomorrow. These are all kind of like micro interactions that lets me know what's going on in my role as a consumer. How can we leverage that technology, that push technology with mobile devices to make the whole efficiency of HR processes more streamlined? The key thing for personalization that we're talking about a lot today is going to be around this sort of people piece. And that's where we get into some of the new language that's coming into the speak we have when we're talking about advances in worker tech, personas and journeys. So I'm not going to tread on Duncan's toes too much, I know he's going to talk about this later, but persona design really is the base of modern design thinking. If you've done any sort of HR rollout over the past 10, 15 years, you have probably had a workshop where you sit down and work out your roles and responsibilities that the people that are going to be using your HR software. There's probably been things like HR administrator, HR business partner, payroll manager, employee worker. So the kind of ideas that the kind of idea that all your workers are either an employee or a manager, and they all need the same thing based on that badge, is kind of becoming a little bit archaic now. And the idea of persona design is really breaking down. Okay, what are the real true roles within your organisation, and mapping those out and their needs. So if I take the example of a retail organisation, for example, you might have a retail assistant, someone that works in the store. You might have a driver that drives between your distribution centres. You might have someone that works on the factory line or manufacturing if you're doing packaged goods. You might have someone in the back office and doing finance or procurement or something like that. They're all employees, but they all have different needs. They all have different sort of technology capabilities. They have different demographics. They need different content. They might use different systems and do different things with your HR services and other services as well. So persona design starts to map out that and puts kind of more color around the people in your organization. It's really the driver for personalization. And then we get onto something called journeys, something you might have heard of. On the surface, it sounds like a fancy name for HR process, but think of it more like a box set of HR processes. Journeys are moments that matter and significant events for your workers that often come coupled with quite convoluted processes, often involving multiple people or multiple personas in our new language, multiple touch points with different system interactions, maybe some offline forms, but generally these are the more complicated things that happen within your organization, and often these are the ones that cause pain and difficulties and inefficiencies. So your help desk might have a lot of, hey, I need to reset my password requests. Those aren't that painful or costly to deal with. The more costly ones to deal with are ones where, hey, my transfers goes wrong, or where a manager passes in a transfer request and the information isn't correct and needs to be passed back. The journey design starts to map out what happens from start to finish and allows you to pinpoint where your problems are. This is a nice sort of screen if you're into IT and like flowcharts. This is where you can start to do something called journey mapping, which is really breaking down that concept of the journey into different chunks on the flowchart, mapping over that, which personas are involved, identifying what systems are used at different points in that journey, identifying where there's offline processes like Word documents or Excel spreadsheets that need to be filled out to keep the process ticking along. And once you start to do that, you can start to put big red crosses on when things aren't working nicely. Oh, there's an Excel sheet that people have to fill out at this point and it keeps coming back incorrect. Well, there's an indication that you've got something that you might want to digitize and look at. Here's something that we submit into Workday and there's no way for the worker to see the status of their request once it's kicked off. Well, maybe we can do something about that and put some layer on top to indicate what's happening. Journey mapping doesn't necessarily mean you need new systems, but it means you can start to map out your processes and where they're maybe not as efficient as they could be. Again, something that Duncan will take on in a minute. So in terms of outcomes, where do we want to get to? Let's go back to our example of someone getting married and having the name change. What we want to take is that tangled process with lots of friction to be something that's nice and smooth and frictionless. So when they want to do something, the information is there for them. Different channels to find out the information. Maybe there's a search facility. Maybe you've got some sort of chat assistant or digital assistant where you can ask about how I do this sort of thing. But different places that someone can go to get the information. Keeping someone informed using these push notifications that we talked about. So when everything is happening, each step of the process, someone's informed. People don't tend to worry too much if things take a long time, as long as they know stuff's happening. What gets frustrating is if something goes into the ether or a black hole of some sort of system and you don't know what's going on. That's when frustrations happen and when more tickets gets raised. Think about all your painful processes that you might have within your business and think about something that's as streamlined as what we're showing on the screen now. Think about if your transfer process or your onboarding process or your relocation process was as simple and smooth for your workers as this one here is. That's where we're trying to get to, and that's what we're talking about, getting to a positive digital experience. And then in terms of outcomes, there, as you probably expect, I think if you're looking to craft a budget and get ROI, most customers look at things like, well, what's my help desk volume looking like? How much does it cost to service all those tickets? Maybe grading the cost of the different tickets. Some tickets are easy to solve, others a bit more difficult. Are we getting tickets passed down to second line HR, third line business partners, and so on? What are the efficiencies for my employees and managers? How are they dealing? How much time are they wasting? But ultimately, it's coming down to thinking about your employees like you think about your customers. There's so much out there on how employee experience is linked, or good employee experience can be linked to business success. It's almost a proven thing now that a better employee experience means your company will have a strategic advantage and successful outcomes, and the digital experience is part of that. And personalization certainly seems to be at the heart of it, as one of the big trends that we see coming through for the next 5 years.